We're very happy to have Professor Eric Zing, who is a computer scientist whose research spans machine learning, computational biology, and statistical methodology. Professor Eric is the founding president of the world's first artificial intelligence university, the Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence, and he's a co-founder and chief scientist at GenBio AI. And we have Marilyn Anderson, who is a full professor of sustainable construction technologies, and she heads the Laboratory of Integrated Performance Design that she launched in the fall of 2010 at the APFL in Lausanne. And since April 2025, Marilyn is also director of the GESDA Foundation, which is the Geneva Science and Diplomacy Anticipator, and whose mission is to anticipate emerging scientific discoveries and translate these into concrete actions for the benefit of society. So, Eric, if it's okay if we start with you, we have a rather general first question for you, if you allow. Your university is spearheading a revolution in the use of artificial intelligence in scientific discovery itself. So I think that's also something which participates very powerfully in this arc that we've been discussing up until now. How do you go about this? What are the guiding principles behind the development of AI and AI platforms, specifically in this context of using AI for scientific research to ensure that the outputs are impactful, that the outputs foster global collaboration, and again, to go back to a previous theme, these outputs reinforce public trust in science?
First of all, thank you for the question, and thank you for having me in this distinguished panel. I'm particularly feel honored to be alongside with Fanon, my former boss. Guys, still my boss, back in CMU. The question about, how to implement AI as a platform to enable scientific discovery in a better and more trustworthy way, maybe, in my opinion, started from how I perceive, building a modern university that is providing the right platform for that. Because I was very fortunate to be creating a new university. I had a good chance to revisit the core idea about the basics of the university. What is a university? What is the core business of the university? We come to the conclusion that the core business of the university is about knowledge discovery and learning and also innovation, among many other things. So in that context, because AI is a new technology and new discipline that is really come to prominence after many of the existing universities were actually built. Naturally, we ask whether the current university structure is a fit, for this topic. There are empirical evidence suggesting that most of the frontier AI results these days that we celebrate and we use are not coming from the university. Mm-hmm. And that actually is my first question that I pose to myself and to my colleague. How can we lead a university back to a position that can lead the science? Mm-hmm. And what is needed to enable that? We found that most of the current modern AI results is unconventional in the lens of classical academic, which champions curiosity-driven research, mm-hmm. rigor, and also independence. There is a stronger industrial flavor which promotes very result-driven research, mm-hmm. large-scale collaboration, and also scalability. And this culture in the past are not really the focus and the cornerstone of a traditional university. So we started from exploring a new approach that combines the academic spirit and also the industrial spirit together into a new environment. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, we need to also produce results that is really convincing for people to follow and to pay attention to. That means you need to have strong results and in a way that is differentiating from what you already see from the industry and from the university. So therefore, we started exploring a unconventional approach in building a new university from ground up. First of all, we're not going to try boil the ocean by spreading across all disciplines and all conventions and all topics. We're going to focus on places where we know how to do well. And also, we explore new approach of prioritizing infrastructures and resources. Now you ask the faculty, in a traditional university, how much time they actually spend on research, and do they really get what they need to do their good research? I don't think you get oftentimes positive answer. Faculty spend maybe most of their time writing program proposals, and the faculty also oftentimes are struggling meeting their students' expectation. The students oftentimes become the PI, and the faculty put their name on that. These are real issues I, as a faculty, experience daily. So we try to revisit, what the university can do in supporting faculty, so that they can put aside some of these distractions and focus their energy to do long-term and impactful research. So impact is not the intent, but it could be the outcome. You want to solve real problems that is challenging and benefiting from an academic environment with good resource. So in that direction, we started to focus on large-scale fundamental research that requires extraordinary collaboration and also massive resource that we as a university could help put together and give it to faculty in a more organized and principled way. So that's where MBCI started not only the academic programs like many other universities, but also we started some research labs that is very mission driven. For example, we formed the Institute Foundation Model, whose mission is to build frontier foundation models such as large language models, word models, models for AI for biology. These are projects which are not typical, as a single PI project you see in university. You see that in industry, but they are not following the academic tradition by publishing the results, by sharing the data. So we want to take advantage of we being a university, but able to revisit the core principle of incentivizing faculty, resource allocation, and also collaboration with the industry to start seeding university on some of these big projects. In the sense that we want to establish our recognition and public alignment by offering those large-scale AI solutions from the university front, so that we provide options, alongside with the industry players. Just to wrap up, for now, for example, MBCI is the first and only university that is able to train from scratch foundation models, such as large language models, from the scratch, and then make them 360-degree open, in the sense that we not only share the weights, like many of the open model are doing, we share the data, share the training recipe, and also with extensive checkpoints, so that the researchers can use it to reproduce the results. That's how we see open science, really is going forward. Because to open and to really promote adoption, you need to also have strong results, not just a philosophy or religion of being open, right? So I think a university needs to reposition, toward this modern science in terms of scale and speed and also performance, so that they stay competitive with the industry revolution.
Eric, thank you very much for that. I'd just like to mention that we have our late arrival, Hugh Brady, who is president of Imperial College at London. Just quickly, prior to his appointment in August 2022, he served as vice chancellor and president of the University of Bristol, and president of University College in Dublin. He is an international authority on the pathogenesis of renal inflammation and diabetic kidney disease. So just a little bit of probably unnecessary context, but I'm sure that you have some thoughts already, hearing a little bit what Eric was saying about the need to rethink the university. I know that, for example, Imperial has a new college of convergence science, and reading this about this, I also felt that there was a new vision that seemed to be developing about how you see the future of mission-driven science and how different types of technologies need to converge in order to be able to address challenges. So, Hugh, what do you think?
Great, thank you very much, and my apologies for being late. My heart rate has dropped by about half over the last 2 minutes, so I had fog in Zurich and security here. But thank you, and great to hear Eric's introductory words. I suppose I would say, I mean, you named the institutions that I've worked in, and most of my formative research years were University of Toronto and Harvard Medical School. And I suppose what I would, maybe a slightly different take I would add is that universities are the world's most long-standing or successful, institutions. I mean, you could include some of the churches, but they're not doing too well of late. But universities are tremendously resilient because they do constantly reinvent themselves. So we say that of individual universities, and then there are always new kids appearing on the block, and it's really fascinating to hear about your institution, Eric. I've always worked at comprehensive universities until Imperial, and what attracted me to Imperial, again, is that it's different. I mean, we describe it as a 120-year-old startup, in that it was originally formed to be useful, which is a wonderful understatement of everything it's achieved. Originally to be useful to industry, but now a much more broader remit. But it again, is different in several ways from most institutions in that it has a STEM B focus, so science, technology, engineering, medicine, and business. And I would add that business schools, which in universities all too often are almost independent empires, I suppose our differentiator is the business school, that interface between business and the world of STEM. And without the business model working, those discoveries aren't going to get to the market, to the clinic, or into policy. The second thing about it is that innovation, because of its history, very much part of the DNA of the institution. But what I really noticed coming in was, for whatever reason, and I'm still trying to discover or understand the secret sauces, collegiality and collaboration happened much more easily than most of the institutions that I've worked in. However, when we took a look at our strategy for Imperial about 18 months ago, again, we thought, wow, the world has changed. Those really big existential threats to humanity and our planet, in many cases, are getting worse. The planet continues to heat up, which certainly we thought challenged us to look at, particularly at our research model, not exclusively, but particularly at our research model, to recognize that you absolutely need strong disciplines. Without the strong disciplines, you don't have the rest, and our community required that reassurance, but that we needed to have more impact, that we needed to go the extra mile in terms of collaboration. And so what we've set ourselves a challenge is moving from multi and interdisciplinary to what we term convergent science. And essentially, all of our academics have their disciplinary home in mathematics or medicine or computer science, but they have the opportunity, so those verticals are really important, but they have the opportunity to participate, should they want to, in 4 horizontal convergent science themes. So human and artificial intelligence, health and technology, sustainability, and science, security, and telecoms. And the challenge that we put to them there is, let's have each of those identify missions or big research questions that could not be advanced through conventional means. And the challenge being not only to learn each other's disciplines, each other's research languages, and you all know how challenging that can be, but actually to recognize where we have not advanced quickly enough, what are the cross-disciplinary, what are the cross-sectoral kind of co-creation, collaborative approach that we require, what are the new research models we need to develop together to come up with answers at the speed that humanity and the planet need. So it's a big play for us. Picking up on some of Eric's themes, it does challenge the university in so many different ways. I mean, we are used to rewarding and incentivizing depending on behavior in our disciplinary verticals, and sometimes siloed. It challenges the research model. It challenges the business model. Engineering schools charge differently for medical schools, charge differently for business schools, and there are parts of the university that don't want to charge at all. But again, unless all of these are addressed, unless that Velcro is removed from the system, it's really difficult to advance at the scale that we need. So it's a big play for us. We're excited about it. We're already seeing some very exciting results, but it's very, very much an experiment to do it at the scale that we've embarked on.
Oh, terrific. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think also there is a natural passage to Marilyn. The concept of having to be very sort of horizontal in thinking about the future, about foresight, which is the crux of GESDA, so to speak. GESDA, in its mission to drive science anticipation for global action, it's important to foster dialogue. It's important to ensure equitable access to scientific knowledge. What I'd like, Marilyn, I think what I'd like you to do is talk specifically about the Open Quantum Institute in the context of GESDA, and just explain how that is sort of a paradigm for all of your approach in scientific foresight.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, first of all, for having me or us here and in such a distinguished company. What you just said about the university needing to reinvent itself is indeed also, as an academic, very close to my heart. And what GESDA does is very complementary to that, indeed. And just maybe to frame the question of OQI in the context a little bit more, it's really to try to see what lies ahead from the perspective of the scientists themselves, in terms of scientific breakthroughs that would have the potential to be disruptive, transformative. So we are talking artificial intelligence, of course, quantum computing, neurotechnologies, synthetic biology, these kinds of big domains, and to try to work with these scientists. So our method is to work directly with biological humans, namely the researchers themselves, and to establish around 40 or so themes per year that would merit attention because of their disruptive capacity, and therefore the need to anticipate, the need to prepare for them. This preparation is important to take advantage of the space we have between a moment where we maybe intellectually know that these transformations are coming, and the moment where they will actually be there and will transform society. And when we are in a race, when we are in a competition, when we are in a moment where everyone fights to be the first, it is very tough to ask the tough questions, to ask the big questions about ethics, about safeguards, about what frameworks need to be built, what infrastructure is needed, because it is already a race. So the idea is to take advantage of this precious window of opportunity to really work on what it means to have this breakthrough, to have this disruption, and prepare the institutions or partnerships, and to do that across all the sectors. The scientific sector, of course, but also the diplomatic sector, the business sector, and civil society in general. So where GESDA situates itself is in trying to make a bridge between the science, this is the grounding, and the decision-making, notably in the diplomatic sphere. So, and how GESDA tries to play a role in that is by helping to build ecosystems that could work on that preparation, so that we can have the sort of global governance models around the table, cooperation, collaboration, and not focus only on being the first. So this being said, if I try to answer your question about OQI, OQI is an acronym that stands for Open Quantum Institute. So this is typically a project that we started to work on to show how important it is to anticipate and turn it into what we call action. So it was incubated at GESDA, it is now hosted at CERN, and it came from the realization in 2021 that the future of quantum computing seemed to have real world applications in an horizon of about 10 years. So that means there was a window. It is not tomorrow, it is in 10 years. And so it is worth starting to work on preparing for quantum being a reality. And how we did that was, I mean, I wasn't at JESDA, but how they did that is by starting to work on the diplomacy side with typically UN organizations like WHO, but also FAO, so for agriculture, or WFP for food, to try to start to bring these kinds of actors around the table, as well as quantum providers from the business sector, and also scientific institutions and scientists themselves specialized in quantum, to try to start to build these frameworks, these discussions, first the conversations and then the frameworks, models, to try to make use cases that were meaningful, and these were derived from the Sustainability Development Goals. So this was giving the framing for what kind of real-world question we wanted to address, and the alignment with SDG was considered to be very important. So this is about giving access to quantum in an anticipated way to all regions, especially those that actually are not working on developing it. So underserved economies, or those places that might not be in the driver's seat and therefore might not be in those that would benefit from the breakthrough. So in summary, the idea is to really find the usefulness of anticipation by working on the alignment between scientific grounding, diplomacy needs, and public good, and so that there is an alignment when you look at business cases as well. So this approach to try to promote cooperation or collaboration rather than export control and sovereignty is sort of the spirit, and might be a spirit that is ever more important today than it ever was, as we are seeing, and this has been a discussion in every panel this afternoon, the trust, the institutions being under attack, science being under attack, and therefore this need to continue to find multilateralism and global governance relevant for science.
Thank you, Marilyn. We're out of time, I know, but I'm still going to ask one quick last round of questions to Hugh and to Eric. I think just to react on what Marilyn has been saying, the importance of foresight, the importance of being able to try to guess what Eric was talking a little bit about, the need to redefine the universe. What is the world going to look like? What do we have to anticipate over let's say the next 5 years into the future? What are you thinking about in terms of guiding your institution to a new way of working, perhaps?
Let's start.
Yeah.
I think maybe picking up on the topic of internationalization, international collaboration, never being more important to answer the big questions facing humanity and the planet, but at a time when the world is unfortunately in so many ways looking in on itself. I mean, we've had, I suppose, sequential challenges in the UK, where we had Brexit first and dissociation from Horizon Europe. Followed by more recent, obviously, geopolitical events, particularly affecting the US. We've taken the decision now, of all times, is the time to really double down on international collaboration. Now, how can university leaders contribute to that? Because some of our academic colleagues will always seek out the best minds they can collaborate with, wherever. But I think what we can do is, in many cases, make life easier for them. Again, try to get the grit out of the system. So what we have taken almost is a multi-layered approach. And we fought very hard to get the UK back into Horizon Europe as a win for Europe, a win for the UK, and a win for the world. And just fantastic now to be part of what is the world's largest transnational research program. And the scale, obviously, that we achieve through that, and the multiplier effect, is hugely powerful in terms of that scale through partnership and greater potential for impact. What we also used the 2-year hiatus when we were lobbying to be back in Horizon Europe, we did use that as an opportunity to really, again, double down on our bilateral collaboration. So we are very proud of the fact we have very good collaborations with some of the great universities of the world, TUM in Munich, CNRS as an institution in France, MIT. And again, we use that as an opportunity to really kind of build greater depth and scale. The most recent initiative we've taken is to look at the areas where we have most collaborative links and most potential, and regions particularly, and establish 4 global hubs in the last 18 months. So these are designed where if we made the judgment that if we had boots on the ground, if we had more really skilled and committed science administrators and scientific leaders, that we could get more bang from our buck through international collaboration and greater scale. So we've opened 4 hubs, one Accra in Ghana as our West African hub, and these are very much intended to be regional hubs. Singapore as our hub for that region, San Francisco, because it's for us as a technological university, home away from home, and then Bangalore for similar reasons. And what has been really interesting is not just how fruitful those have been in building collaboration, not just with academic institutions, but with industry and government, but actually the welcome that we've had, and coming back to the spirit of trust and partnership. I think the welcome we've had is, look, this has to be a win-win, and boy, does international higher education and research need more of this. So it's something we're going to push on with, and I think it's never been a more than, first and foremost, because again, whether it's antimicrobial resistance or water and food security or pandemic preparedness, of course, none of these problems recognize borders. So all of these, hopefully what are temporary hallucinations we might be having now, hopefully will be ironed out with time. And I think just in the meantime, it's us to really double down to overcome the recent barriers that have been put in place.
Thank you very much, Hugh. Eric, for the final word, some of these comments resonated with you. Do you say a few words about international collaboration in the context of your work?
Yeah, I think in modern science, especially in AI, you see almost all the great results coming out of big collaborations, especially international collaborations. So MBCI started from day one, is embedded in that culture and mindset. It's actually even probably surprise to you that our first international collaborator in UAE is actually with the Weizmann Institute of Israel. So you can see, that openness, that vision, of science prevail over politics and the geopolitical conflicts, is what makes this young institution very strong and also vibrant. Now you mentioned about foresight. I'm trying to really see, as a young university, how it can benefit from a good foresight. And I see them from 2 lenses. One is, of course, a scientific one, that you want to try your best as a scientist to make a good guess or bet on what is to be the next, a big problem, what is the most exciting, interesting problems that, you want to invest time and attention. But that's typically, isn't going to be turning the needle of a whole university, because even you are the president or you are a senior officer, you cannot tell the faculty to do what problem and how to do it, right? More importantly, it's to set a culture right so that the faculty can win and can have the space, to really focus on their problem of interest. So we are trying to create such a supporting environment by liberating the faculty from, this less rewarding struggling of secure funding, of publishing incremental results just to meet a certain benchmark of promotion, and also of selling their results, through social media engagements and so forth to gain attention. We really want to, give them the space of, working on what they believe and to be the important problem, and also honestly want to commit themselves into working that problem. And then we give them the support. That means, you need to rethink about the funding mechanism in a university, and also the promotional mechanisms in a university, and also maybe helping them, to connect to international collaborations. For example, in addition to Weizmann, right now, MBCI is forging partnerships with MIT, with, of course, Carnegie Mellon, where I came from. I think these, leading universities are really, showing us a lot of the good practice and also exposing to us additional opportunities that might be a little bit harder to implement and to realize in a very established organization. So we're trying to be, this little David, we're small and young, but we are agile, and also we are, maybe more risk-prone, to try new ideas, so that even as a small young institution, we can make meaningful impact, on problems of conscious selection and also of national and global interest.
Thank you very much, Eric. I think it's a great place to end the discussion today on the optimism of the future generation. I'd like to invite everyone to please thank our panelists for this fantastic discussion.